Welcome to all. We'll start with the prayer. Sanjay ji, please start with the prayer.
Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om.
Namaste to all. I welcome Dr. Hila Manini for today's podcast. With a very short notice, she agreed to come for the podcast. In fact, Dr. Pritam Kumar Sinha introduced her about her book, and I was so fascinated to see that book. So immediately I contacted her, and she agreed for today's podcast. I request Pritam Kumarji to introduce Dr. Hira Manini Sheshaji. Over to Pritam Kumarji.
Thank you, Vasudevji. Dr. Hiramani Seshadri, MBBS, MD, is an accomplished physician, academic author, and a spiritual healer whose career has been a unique blend of excellence in both modern medicine and holistic healthcare. A gold medalist and the best outgoing medical student from Christian Medical College, Vellore, she was the first Indian doctor elected by British Society in 1987. With over 2 decades as a senior consultant at Apollo Hospital, Chennai, Dr. Seshadri has also been a lifelong advocate of integrated medicine, blending scientific healthcare with ancient Indian healing and spirituality. From her early career of service in rural Kerala for her decades of free medical seva at various organizations and Sri Satya Sai General Hospital, her work has touched countless lives. She currently serves as an honorary faculty at Sri Satya Sai Sarla Memorial Hospital and continues to inspire as a writer, teacher, and composer of Sai Kritis. Her books and national columns reflect her pioneering vision for holistic healthcare, rooted in both evidence-based scientific research and ancient Indian spiritual wisdom. Her life, blessed by the grace of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba, stands as a beacon of healing, devotion, and transformative social impact. I welcome Dr. Hiramani Seshadri to share her thoughts in the podcast today. Welcome, ma'am.
Namaste to everyone. Thank you, Preetham, for those kind words, and all credit I duly pass on to Bhagwan. Now today, we're going to talk about this new book. It's titled An Introduction to Spirituality and Traditional Indian Medicine for medical students and healthcare professionals in training. It's actually a book. It's like an idea whose time has come. And I think it should appeal to anyone who's interested in health. As I speak today to all of you, I stand tall on the shoulders of so many. We're all co-travelers in this drama. I remember with gratitude Eknath Ranade ji, because of whom there is this wonderful Vivekananda Kendra today, which is contributing to the renaissance of India, of Bharat. I remember with gratitude Param Guru Bhagwan Baba, who put this thought of this book into my head. I offer my gratitude to Sadhguru Madhusudan Sai, who converted and transformed this thought into words and made us bring out this book. I thank my co-author, Dr. Divya Seshadri, and I'm blessed to be her mother. And of course, editor, Professor Preetam Sinha. But the three of us have just been instruments, nimitta matram, that's it. And it's all divine will and grace that this book has happened. Just to give you some idea of how this book came about, around 2001-2002, Bhagwan Baba got me and my husband to pen a book called The Science of Medicine. And in 2003, he observed Doctors' Day in Whitefield. It so happened we were also there, and along with other doctors, we were also honored. And I got a chance to speak to Bhagwan. And then I said, Swami, we need a book on spirituality for medical students. In fact, we need a spiritualized medical college. Regarding the book, he said, yes. I said, Swami, you have to write it. I will only be your pen. And he said, yes. And then he stared into space as if looking into the future. And then he said, but wait. So I waited. Around 2016-17, inwardly he said, right. And then a book called Towards Excellence in Modern Healthcare happened. It's a real big tome, you know. It's available again as an ebook on Amazon. And in 2021, that book was revamped and it became recommended reading for an online international course on compassionate healthcare. When I said revamp, you see, that naturally that book had a lot of things that are not really taught in medical college. And one of the things that our Sadhguru said was, this is now going to be for the general public. So you shouldn't have an overdose of sai in it, you see. So the reason why I mentioned this is how spirituality can affect the lives of normal human beings if you just have simple faith. And so there was a chapter in it called Healings Beyond Our Current Understanding. Naturally, it had healings from all faiths, from Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Sikhism, everything. And of course from Hinduism, or Sanatana Dharma as well. And naturally, being a Sai devotee, I had a lot of Sai miraculous healings to talk about. But now I had to tone that down and remove them and put them with something else. So I thought, what shall I do? And then I thought of Ramana Maharshi. Maybe there are some miraculous cures associated with him. The minute I thought of him, you won't believe it, brothers and sisters, he just appeared. And he said, smilingly, no, don't waste your time searching for miracle cures in me, under my name. But you look under Seshadri Swamigal. Monkey mind, you know what I did? I immediately Googled and checked for miracle cures under Ramana Maharshi. Didn't find any, as he had said. But under Seshadri Swamigal, there was a whole website. So what I'm saying is, the great ones are all around all of us to guide us, and even simple ordinary folk, when we least expect it, we can get the spiritual guidance. All that it needs is a sincere heart. In 2023, Sadhguru Sri Madhusudan Sai started the world's first private, rural, totally free of cost medical college. Here a student can walk in with just the clothes they wear and walk out a couple of years later as a doctor, or as a nurse, or as a technician, or as a paramedic. And in 2024, the Department of Integrated Medicine was inaugurated. Very pleasing to my heart. And then in 2025, this book has happened. And the high point of this book is that the preface is written by our beloved Sadhguru Sri Madhusudan Sai. Now, when we provide free healthcare and free medical education, why would we charge for a book? But then Amazon insists on a minimum price, and so it costs a princely sum of rupees 49, less than 2 cups of coffee, shall we say. Okay. Now, why such a book at all? The modern medical graduate of India has a colonized mindset. I'm sorry, I too began like that to start with. You see, in 1800s, early 1800s was when modern medical education began in India. And initially it was integrated medicine because they did teach Ayurveda, they did teach Unani. But came Macaulay in 1835 and he put a stop to all that. He banned anything Indian. No Sanskrit, no Indian language, no Indian medicine. Because their goal was not to create a confident nation, not nation building. Their goal was to create subservient, a group of second-class citizens with a slavish mentality to serve the British Empire. That was their goal, and they did succeed. So the Indian medical graduates trained. First of all, they were ignorant of traditional Indian medicine because nothing was taught. They were taught to look down with disdain on anything Indian, and they were almost apologetic for being Indian. You see, and even after 1947, even after independence, even in research, if you take, say, reincarnation research, it's an Indian topic, it's our culture, it's our heritage, but who's done the research? University of Virginia. For 60 years, they are the leaders in research in that area. Yoga, again, the West leads in research. This has to change, and the first step is to remove the ignorance. Knowledge is the answer. Why talk of history? A tree can only grow as tall as its roots go deep. In 2011, the Journal of Psychological Sciences, they make it all scientific, they said that national pride, collective pride in one's culture, heritage, language, medicine, this affects individual confidence, individual ability to think, to be creative. You see, the I can feeling. And when you have the I can feeling, confidence comes in, and there's, what you expect happens. There's the power of expectation. And the whole nation, whole individuals make up a nation that can lead to great positive change. And therefore, history is again important. It is important that we educate our next generation of all students, including medical students, about a little bit of our history. Now, this book has 12 chapters, and the first 2 chapters are dedicated to history. Why? Because our history has been, as all of you know, distorted by colonial historians. So we have to transform, reform, rewrite our history with proper evidence. The evidence that has been used in this book is evidence from the research of IIT Kharagpur. They've studied the Saraswati River greatly. Evidence from the National Institute of Ocean Technology, because they've done deep sea, underwater marine archaeology. They've found things under the Arabian Sea, man-made structures, in fact a whole city, and dating points to 9,000 years before the present. The Bharatidasan University of Trichy has, in the recent times, found an entire sophisticated harbor more than 30 kilometers off in the sea, outside of Pumpuhar, in the deep seas of the Bay of Bengal. And this is dated to around 15,000 years before present. And this sophisticated harbor apparently was a prototype for other harbors like this all across the world, in Egypt, in Greece, in Italy, in Micronesia, Polynesia, and so on. So we were a great maritime civilization. What pride it brings to know all this. So all this is there in this book, you see. And in fact, historically, Bharat was one nation linked by language, yoga, and traditional Indian medicine. During the great Sangams, the great ones all over Bharat used to collect. And they were united by 2 languages, Madhura Bhasha or Tamil and Sanskritam. And I must mention the name of a great researcher, Jayashree Saranathan. She's an authority on Sanskrit, Tamil, Vedas, and Jyotisha. Now, we need to know about the great ones who live in our midst. As of now, they are unknown. Then we have literary evidence in Sanskritam and in Tamil. And the chronology of the great Pandyas are there in this literature, as well as in epigraphs. You see, carved into epigraphs, the whole genealogy of the Pandya dynasty, the great Pandyas. And that goes back as far back as 30,000 years before present. And we have also the latest evidence from Durham University. They study the sea levels. They see that because of the rise of sea levels, so much of land beyond Kanyakumari, where all of you are, has gone under the sea. In fact, I feel that, the Kumarika Khanda mentioned in the Bhagavata Purana and other Sanskrit texts, and of course in the Tamil literature, is only waiting to be discovered. If we search for it, we'll find it under the waters. Chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6 are devoted to spirituality. Now, the basic premise of Indian spirituality is that consciousness underlies everything. And without consciousness or the Atma, there is no healing. And Bhagwan Baba taught this to me very sweetly in the form of a song. So, if you don't mind, I will share the song, just 3-4 lines with you. It's in Hindi. Soham, soham dhyan kare, soham, soham dhyan kare, har saas hame सिखलाती है सोहम सोहम ध्यान करें जिस बिन वैद्य ना कर पावे कुछ जिस बिन वैद्य ना कर पावे कुछ जिस बिन औषध करत न काम जिस बिन वैद्य ना कर पावे कुछ जिस बिन औषध करत न काम उस आत्मा की ज्ञान दिसाई अंतर्यामी स्वामी अंतर्यामी स्वामी हर पल हर दम सोहम 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 ध्यान करे सोहम. So this is what Bhagwan Baba taught me, that it is that power of the Atma that heals, as simple as that. And modern medicine, it's time that we acknowledged it, this common sense solution. Where did I source material to write about spirituality in this book? Firstly, from Bhagwan Baba, of course. Secondly, Sadhguru Madhusudan Sai. Thirdly, I'm somewhat of an Ekalavya-like student of Swami Sarvapriyananda, the YouTube Swami as he is known. Parivrajika Divyananda Prana, a great woman leader and one who is bringing science and consciousness studies together. And of course, the 3 Nobel laureates of 2022, who have literally proved that consciousness does exist because of their work on entanglement. I also sourced 3 doctors. One is Dr. Kuppuswamy. Who do you think that is? Swami Shivananda. He was Dr. Kuppuswamy before he became Shivananda. And then, of course, Dr. Deepak Chopra, a rishi of our times. and Dr. Robert Lanza. I've generously learnt from them and put the learnings into the book. And then, of course, personal, direct experiences from Baba. I've told you how Ramana Maharshi guided me when the Towards Excellence in Modern Healthcare had to be revamped. Baba himself too. I remember when I was writing this book called The Science of Medicine, these words for Satchidananda, they say existence, knowledge, bliss. Somehow I didn't like that phrase and it didn't make much sense to me at that time, you see. So I said, Swami, there has to be some other way. And I was so sincere in my prayer. Suddenly felt him standing right in front of me. And he smiled and said, okay, you don't have to write those words. You write being, awareness, bliss. Being, awareness, bliss. Okay, that sounded much better. And then with a twinkle in his eye, he says, being, awareness, bliss, always. BABA is Baba. See how wonderful, how simple the great ones make things for us. Why I share this is that we just have to seek and doors will open instead of blocking ourselves and saying, no, there's nothing beyond the physical. And there are 4 things that modern doctors have to face. One, what we call the hard problem of consciousness. We all know all the sensations, touch, temperature, taste, vision, hearing, smell, everything finally just becomes electricity in the brain. But then, how does it transform and we feel the ecstasy of music, or the soft touch of a newborn, or the pain of losing a beloved one? So it's something much more than just plain dumb electricity, right? There is something else out there. That's consciousness. Likewise, there is also a hard problem of matter. Now, you and me, we think we are solid, right? Okay, this hand is solid. But what is it? It's made of? It's made of some tissues. The tissues are made up of cells. The cells are made up of molecules. Molecules are made up of atoms. And atoms are 99.9999% empty space. Which means we are 99.99% empty space. But we feel solid because of the forces working to keep that point, not what a 1% of solid tissue together. The Buddhists say that in that nothingness is shunya, but our rishis say in that nothingness, as Baba used to say, is everything. And that is the Parabrahman or Atma or Chaitanya or consciousness, as we, in modern science we like to say. And there's also one more thing. As Parivrajaka Divyanand Prana says, in physics we accept there's something called center of gravity. Now, we've not seen the center of gravity, we've not touched it, but we believe in it because it explains a lot of things. Likewise, in this cosmos, we have to, in quantum physics, we have to postulate the existence of consciousness. It's like the center of narrative gravity, as they call it. Okay? And above all, this book has come at the right time. Desha, Kala, Paristhiti is right. Because, see, people, the masses, they don't follow scientists and, mathematicians. They follow the thought leaders, the, influencers in social media, political leaders. And you can check it out. Don't take my word for it because there's AI around these days. Oprah Winfrey is a Sanatani. She influences so many people. Pam Bondi, who is a cabinet member of the Trump's cabinet, she's a Sanatani apparently. So the time has come for Sanatana Dharma and for the ancient Bharatiya philosophy, where spirituality and science were in harmony. It's time for this to come out. Chapters 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11, they go on to talk about traditional Indian medicine. And here we've written about yoga, Siddha Maratva and Ayurveda. Chapter 7 is on yoga. Whenever we say yoga, immediately we talk of Patanjali, right? But this book, we try to go beyond that. And again, I'm grateful to Jayashree Saranathan for her work on Adi Yogi Shiva, on Muruga, In fact, she says Muruga was the one who started the Vedic civilization, the concept of yagyas and so on. And of course, the rest of the benefits of yoga in medicine and in medical education, how it can help students, how it can help them in exam times. And most recently, surgical trainees in the USA are benefiting with yoga. Their surgical skills are being enhanced. So shouldn't we be following it in our own country? And then, of course, the Yoga Siddhis are being studied at the Institute of Noetic Sciences in the USA. Professor Radin is at the forefront. So that's also covered in this book. Chapter 8 and 9, they're really marvelous chapters because I learned so much while writing them. They're devoted to Siddha Marutva. And here I must thank, my heartfelt gratitude I must express to late Mandem Kumarji. He was a great Siddha physician and researcher who transcribed painstakingly Tamil manuscripts, ancient Tamil manuscripts, into modern Tamil and English, especially one called Prapancha Kandam, which is more than 3,000 years old. He didn't have a place to publish what he found. And so you know what he did? Internet had just come, and there were these websites of Siddha medical, outlets, and in their websites he used to publish what he found. And thank God he did, because that's how I could locate his precious writings. I tried to contact him, and then I found that he passed on. His colleague Ishwaramurthy sir is retired now. He's in Tirunelveli. His student Pandit Kamaraj helped a great deal in unearthing a lot of information about Siddha Marutva, its history. And the National Institute of Siddha, Dr. Meena Kumari, her assistant, and Professor J. Prakash Narayan, and my good friend Dr. Ventamari Chelvi, they all contributed to this information on Siddha Marutva. And where did I get this information? From the Prapancha Kandam translation by Mandem Kwarsa, but also we had literary evidence in other sources. And that's important, not just one source. The other sources were Agasthyar Vaidyashekaram, which was brought to my notice by Pandit Kamarajar, and another called Kandar Nadi Vakyam. Okay? And they speak of 3 timelines. Now, actually, our ancients were the masters of time. I don't know how, the Westerners could have dismissed us saying we have no sense of time or historicity. Our people dated things astronomically, using the positions of the objects in space so accurately. And they speak of 3 timelines. One is 5,125 years before present. That's when Kali Yuga began. The other is 5,108 years before present, when something called Siddha Vedam was put in writing by Agastya, Bhoganatha, and others. And apparently, this was done on the guidance of Muruga and Dakshinamurti and Shenbaga Devi, who are supposed to be reincarnations of Shiva, and Parvati in another form. And they were told to bring it out in 4 languages: Tamil, Sanskritam, Chinese, and Greek. This is important. Okay? When exactly the translations happened, I do not know, but they were translated. Now, Hippocrates, what is his timeline? It's about 2,500 to 2,600 years before present. Whereas Siddha Vedam was 5,108 years before present. So it is very, very likely that the flow of knowledge was from Bharata to Greece, and not quite the other way around as we are often told. Besides, we were a great maritime civilization. We ruled the seas. Okay? Therefore, it's very likely that it happened that way. And Hippocrates' guru was greatly influenced by the Upanishads and many Greek great ones had come to India. So it's time to have a relook at that part of history. And I would say that, food is medicine, what Hippocrates said, is what we say in Tamil, Unave Marunda. The Hippocratic oath is exactly what the Siddha oath is like. See? So I would say that, yes, Hippocrates is the father of modern medicine, but if so, Agastya certainly was the grandsire of modern medicine. And now we come to a very, very, very interesting fact, which has been brought out in this book. 5,068 years before present time, the world's first medical college at Thoranamalai was established. It was the Siddha Medical College and Research Center in Thoranamalai in Tirunelveli district of Tamil Nadu, near the Kutralam Falls. And there's mention of this Thoranamalai Institute in Prapanchakandam, in Agatya Vaidyasekaram, in Kandar Nadi Vakyam. Okay? More research needs to be done on all this. Our medical students should be doing all this. When I say medical students, it includes everyone. Students of modern medicine, students of Ayurveda, students of Siddha Maruthvam, the entire Ayush across the block. And more about this medical college. The faculty was international. It was founded by Agastya along with Bhoganatha, whose roots are in China. His guru was actually Kalinginathar, who was Chinese. And then there was Nandidevar from Malaysia, who was later known as Therayar. There was Yugimini from Kerala. And the students were also international, apparently. And they had many satellite centers. In Tiruparamkundram, recently it's been in the news, right? In Marudamalai, in Chidambaram. Okay? All this is mentioned in these manuscripts. And the entire syllabus is given. They used to have a lot of yoga, meditation, pulse reading for diagnosis, which is followed even today in Tibetan medicine. It probably came from the ancient Siddha Maruthvam. The degrees they gave were after 6 years, after 12 years, after 18 years. And the final goal of learning Siddha medicine was not just to become a doctor. The goal was to become a perfected man, a Siddha Purusha, a self-realized person. How wonderful is our history? How wonderful is our heritage? Should we not know it? Should our children not know it? I want you to think about it, ladies and gentlemen. And what about the knowledge level? It was astounding. They knew about bone marrow. They knew that blood corpuscles were formed in bone marrow. They knew about hand washing. They knew about asepsis. They knew about disinfection. They knew about anesthesia. They used to use banana fiber to do suturing, also silk. They did complex surgeries. So all this is there in the manuscripts. It is all in Tamil. And therefore, even our North Indian brothers and sisters are largely unaware of it, not to talk of the rest of the world. So a lot of research needs to happen in this area. And today's medical students have to do all that. The next chapter, that will be chapter 9, was also devoted to Siddha Maruthvam. And here I touch a topic that most people are scared to touch, Jiva Samadhis. It's a fact. And it shows also the importance of meditation. And we have quoted, documented evidence of Jiva Samadhis happening in the recent, say, 100 years. Okay? And I know that Siddha physicians trained the traditional way. They go to the Jiva Samadhis and meditate. Because in deep meditation, they are able to trans-dimensionally connect with, say, Agastya or Bhoganatha or any of the great ones. And it helps their patients of the 21st century in diagnosis as well as in guidance for treatment. This may seem bizarre, but we have to, with open eyes, decide to study these phenomena and not just rubbish them. That's the message. In fact, I know of one young Siddha physician called Dr. Shiva. He's been guided throughout by Agastya. It's happening in this day and age, in the 21st century. So, what about our own Sadguru? The Sadguru Madhusudan Sai global humanitarian mission for the first decade was entirely guided inwardly by Bhagwan Baba. Now that he's self-realized, of course, he himself can tap into that omniscience of the self. So this is where humanity has evolved. The next step of evolution is from human to divine. And according to our Sadguru, what is it? It is being absolutely selfless, because all is one. Not easy to say, but that's where he wants us to walk. And he's walking the talk, so we'd have to follow. And there were two very interesting things that I found in the Prapancha Kantam translation. It stunned me that Buddha and the gentle Lord Jesus both apparently trained under Agastya in yoga. I'll leave it at that. It's for all of you to also do your own due diligence and research. But as I said, we have to, with courage, bring out what is written in our ancient texts, palm leaf manuscripts, and so on. Now, chapters 10 and 11, how are we doing for time? Okay, are on Ayurveda. And the book goes into the Pipala the Maharshi's Garbha Upanishad, which is apparently 12,000 years before present, and the Atharva Veda. Name it, it's there in the Veda. Embryology, anatomy, osteology, physiology. They knew about circulation. Bhela Samhita talks about it. Microbiology, disinfection. When it comes to microbiology, they knew about bacteria, anu. You see? Krimi, they called it. They knew about immunity. And then, of course, Sushruta and Charaka are well known today, the giants in medicine and surgery. But one thing, all these great ones, they always wrote idam na mama. Because once they could tap into that omniscience and download information, as it were, they thought it was silly to put down their names as, inventor, discoverer, and things like that. Then we come to another period of Ayurveda at the time of Buddha. Buddha was also a great physician, Bhishagura, you see. And then his doctor, Jivaka, and I must mention this, Jivaka did a craniotomy and removed a parasite from a businessman, and cured him. The same surgery was done 2,000 years before that, or 2,500 years before that, by Terayar and Agastya together. They removed from apparently a king's brain a parasite that cured him of his head. Craniotomy was done those days. And just 2 years ago or so, there was a news item that Dr. Haripriya Bandi in Canberra at craniotomy had removed a living worm from the brain. So you see how Bharatiyas have been in action. Now, shouldn't our medical students be knowing all this? And then, of course, finally, I've chosen, the literature on Ayurvedic history is vast, but I chose to present what Dr. Basisht, he's also a rheumatologist, USA based, has written. Calls it the 5 laws of well-being. The first law Ayurveda teaches us is that we have to be living in harmony with our true identity. If our true identity is consciousness or the Atma or the self, then there is no place for Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, right? That itself will take care of a lot of disease. The second law is that we should be in harmony with nature. Nature is what? Space and time. So time, when it comes to time, seasonal food, seasonal disciplines, that's to be followed. When it comes to women's health, you can't do everything all the time. Menstrual health is something that is related to well-being, which modern medicine has not yet reached there, right? And then space. From Akasha came, Vayu, then came Agni, then came water, then came earth, and then all the vegetations and food. So when you say space, it finally ends up with food. So eating sattvic food for health. Then metabolism. This is again in modern medicine has a lot to catch up on. Okay, the ancients spoke about Agni, the Jataragni, the internal metabolic energy, and they connected it to the breath. Pranayama was a very important way to good health. Modern medicine is now scratching at the surface. The West is repackaging it as breathing techniques, mindful meditation, etc., etc. Then the fourth was Saptadhatus, that is the tissues. So you have to take care of the physical body, the 7 tissues described in Ayurveda, and the asanas, yogasanas would help in that. And then finally, Ayurveda places a lot of importance on correct elimination of wastes. This again, modern medicine, we haven't understood its importance yet. Now we are beginning to, because gut biome is a very big thing in the news today. That was known to the Ayurvedic physicians long ago. And the last chapter is on 8COM. What is 8COM? Attitude, ethics, and communication. What was practiced by the Siddha medical colleges, if we just practice it today, then our students will turn out fine. In Tamil, it's known as Yamam and Niyamam. That is Yama and Niyama of yoga. Okay? Bhagwan Baba used to say, teachers, all teachers, not just medical ones, you have to be whatever you're teaching. You have to do whatever you're teaching. You have to see whether your students are following it, and talk or tell. And you tell them what is right, and you make sure that they tell it right too. And I have some good news to share. Our Sadhguru is following these practices in SMS IMSR, that is Srimad Sudan Sai Institute of Medical Sciences and Research. And the first batch, they were horrified, the children, when they were told that they can't bring in any smartphones. But Sadhguru was adamant. And it's a residential college, no phones. Some students refused to join because they were told no phones. But when the results came, and mind you, they have Paravidya and they have yoga and meditation, all that's part of academics, along with medical training. Out of the 50 students, all of them got first class marks and 39 got distinctions. And it was quite a tough exam. The external examiners are also absolutely, flawed by the knowledge that these children had. And now they're very happy with what Sadhguru did. They don't mind. Once a week, of course, they can call their parents on the phone and speak to them. But no social media distractions. I think I'm done. And if there's any time for questions.
Thank you. It was nice listening to you, ma'am. In fact, it was a spiritual and scientific lecture. And in fact, we have been very overwhelmed listening to you. In terms of linking the concepts of the great, our Sheshadri ji, who was having a golden hand, in which he had a privilege and blessings of him to have all the things done as such great. And being a Sai devotee, no wonder you got all the blessings of him also in translating all the things, whatever it has been called for. A person of this order of spirituality integrating with the concept of scientific temper is the need of the hour and also call of the day as such. We were just moved to understand or unravel all these things, having a connectivity of interconnectedness. Great, ma'am. Thanks for giving this lecture to us, and we are all privileged listening to you.
May I mention
to the members. Yes, ma'am, please.
May I mention just one thing? We sent it out for previews because nowadays you can send it online. We sent the book for previews across the board to academics, policymakers in modern medicine, Ayurveda, Siddha, and yoga. And uniformly, it was a very positive, response that we received. And now there is a lot of people want to bring out the book in a book form. They want a printed version. So if any of you have any ideas, please let me know, because as I said, we wanted to make this book free, but then Amazon insists on a minimum price, so the e-book is 49 rupees. Now, how do we get this out? Will somebody be interested in bringing it out as a printed book? Because all we want is that this knowledge should come out, and whatever proceeds can be used for some good seva. That's all that we're looking for. So if you have any ideas, do get back. And please do read the book and spread the good word. Thank you.
Ma'am, you would be happy to know that I am one of the workers working for a Reflection Publication Trust, which works for poor communities. It brings out articles for the community in the field of health, education, and the socio-economic development. Predominantly, we have been concentrating on this health initiatives in a much bigger way as such. I'll also share a few of our books to you as such, which will give you some idea. But basically, we are more interested in this sort of a venture. Actually, my challenge is basically I work with nearly about 10 lakh women members as such. My idea is how to make it meaningful or take it to them. One is to make them read, second them to make them share, and third thing, make them to follow it. These are the three things which I have. In fact, the last June 19th, we have a Readers' Day engagement, which we had a very intense sessions on that, where we made the community to understand the relevance of it. Now on coming 4th also, we are going to have the same thing of Readers' engagement. Probably we'll be more interested on that. I'll keep sharing the book, and also we would also love to see the possibilities of bringing out from our end also, which would be making a great meaningful thing for the communities as such. That's a basic thing. We work, Dan Foundation works in the field of community banking, water conservation, and promoting a rain-fed agriculture through millets. So that has been our domain. And we have been doing in our own way, reaching the poor as such. Probably we'll be more interested to know more about the book and also see how best we could bring it out in a manner which would be palatable to the communities as such. So we're very happy. And probably to start with the questions before others start, ma'am, actually, my own better half had a problem of a uterus with the fibroids happening, and then thyroid problem coming in, overbleeding coming in. So the minute I took her to the general conventional allopathic treatment, first question which they were asking for is are you insured? First question. The second question was, you have done tests elsewhere, but also you should be in a position to have the test here also. That is the second. Third thing is how much you have. Are you in hand if you are not insured? So before trying to understand the problem, these are the three questions. And for the poor communities, I had a big problem of not supporting of 1 lakh or 150 or 80,000. The budget range of that order was there. So immediately what I did is to all my elders in our family also have undergone such sort of a treatment, were insisting that my better off also should get the same. Then I said that no, there would be some alternative medicines which should need to be explored. And how does the poor can afford this? That's my key question in my life. So that happened. Then when I explored, then I happened to see many of our Kalanjiam members were having this problem and they got overcome through homeopathy as such. You believe it or not, within 3 months, my better off got everything all right. And within it's all scientific evidence, baseline, thyroid removed, HP level increased, over, and having a regular menstruation process. What I'm trying to say is people are not aware about the other alternative medicines or integrative medicines as we call for to understand the nuances of the values which has been inscribed on it. So that's the thing. Probably it's a need of the hour where in which the poor communities would feel the value of such traditional medicines, bringing them a great sense of not only relief, but release from the problem. That is what we are looking for. I'm happy that we are listening to your
knowledge is the only solution. Knowledge, spreading knowledge is really the only solution. And Bhagwan Baba and our Sadhguru says, the day India started selling food, selling education, selling healthcare, our downfall began. So Sadhguru is trying to reverse the trend. Here we provide nutrition to hungry school children, morning breakfast. As of now, more than 10 million children get fed every day across India and some other countries. And education is totally free. Not even hostel, no nothing. Even medical education.
Great man, great man, great man. Nice listening to you.
No billing counter in our hospital.
Great. In fact, some of the concept of Annapurna has been there, where in which people come and pay what they like and take what they want. So it's a very great concept.
That's a great restaurant.
In fact, we made a case studies also that many of the places they have as such. Nice listening to many people have, in fact, naturally, as Vasudevji has immediately told about his own inspiration, listening to it. Probably Jagdish ji has raised his hand. We would love to listen to him asking the question. Over to Jagdish ji, please.
Pranam to Bhagwan Satya Sai Baba, Pranam to Dr. Hiramalini Seshadri, and Pranam to all. A beautiful session, quite inspired. My this one humble suggestion was that integrating Gurukulam system into this modern education can significantly enhance the spiritual dimension of the learning. And the very thing you just now said, that healthcare should be free, food should be free, all that is possible into a Gurukulam kind of a system.
Yes.
And I feel that point should be, you great people should try to bring that Gurukulam system as early as possible into the modern education. That is one thing. Second thing, I was just curious to know,
Yes.
in the ancient medical system and knowledge,
Yes.
is dental care given any prominence or any attention?
Yes, there's mention of, in both Ayurveda and Siddha, there's mention of dental problems and treatment. Yes.
Okay.
I do not know more details, but yes.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much.
Over to others for the questions.
Jagdish ji, since you mentioned about Gurukulam, here we have a Gurukulam system of education. We have 28 campuses
Okay.
offering education to girls and to boys in separate campuses from 6th standard to class 10, and then they have pre-university, and there is also a university called the Sri Sathya Sai University for Human Excellence, which is all entirely free.
Okay.
Everything
This is at the Satya Sai Center, huh?
This is at the, it's part of the Sri Madhusudan Sai Global Humanitarian Mission,
Okay.
and it is headquartered in Satya Sai Grama
Yeah.
in Muddenahal.
Okay.
And Sadhguru Madhusudan Sai was a student of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. He did his BSc Chemistry, MSc Chemistry, and MBA, and double gold medalist.
Yeah.
Obviously a highly evolved soul, and even after Baba left the physical, he is inwardly guided by Baba to continue this mission of love all and serve all.
Okay.
And he does this mainly through three wings: nutrition, education, and healthcare, as well as setting up centers of human development across the globe.
Okay.
There are more than 12 in various countries, and where people are encouraged to participate in seva, because selfless seva is the way forward for your spiritual advancement. That's what he says. And selfless love, according to him, selfless seva is religion, selfless love is God. Full stop.
Yes. Yes.
Simplified it for
Yes.
us.
Yes. Yeah, true. Yeah.
Sanjay ji?
This information is put by our group, for further this thing, exploring. Thank you very much.
Sure, sir. Sure. We are normally trying to bring the podcast sports script also above the whole article. And as Vasudev said that it is being recorded, we will get a transcript of the whole dialogue which has been taking place, and we'll try to share with our own working group members for the benefit of all. Sanjay ji?
Once again, Namaste, Dr. Hiramani ji.
Namaste ji.
It was a wonderful, privilege, I should say, and thanks to Kendra for organizing such podcasts. And one gets to know so much. And as you rightly said, we should know our own history. It's a tragedy, real tragedy of our country that our history is not known to ourselves. Anyway, I just wanted to share one personal kind of experience. Is that I got some kind of a heart ailment, and I was under ventilation for 48 hours, and my heart muscles got affected, and the ejection factor became 31. And the doctor said that it could recover, it may not recover, but you carry on. And people with lower ejection factor often live life, resting life, etc. So that happened in somewhere around 2018. It happened, and it was, I was doing 6 monthly checkup, etc. And it was coming 31 consistently. Then COVID came. I belong to Amrita Vishwavidya and I go to Amrita Institute of Medical Sciences for my checkup. So I could not go for that checkup. And our Amma, because of COVID, people couldn't come to her. She started online meditation practice.
Okay.
And there was the electronic link that I got on 7th of March 2021. And I started practicing online meditation guided by Amma's presence and her disciples. And it was going on. Then COVID ended, and June 2022, 15 months after this practice started, I got the opportunity again to physically visit the doctor and get my heart checked up. And doctor is surprised to find that it has become 60, the normal value.
Fantastic. Yes. Yes.
So he said, how possible? I said, doctor, only one change is there. Everything else is same, but I'm attending online meditation.
Yes.
So, really speaking, and Sri Aurobindo Ashram's, mother, she used to say, it's ultimately faith that heals. There is an Aurobindo Eye Hospital here in Coimbatore.
Yes.
And if you visit there at the entrance itself, her own handwriting is there in big lines. It's faith which ultimately heals. And I never heard that consciousness, the explanation of consciousness that you gave in your talk, that ultimately all this electrical energy, nerves, currents, etc., how does it get converted into emotions, feelings, and all that? And that is the work of consciousness. So, I appreciate very much, learned a lot, and I do hope that this comes out as a printed book sometime. Obviously, I order the e-copy and then share it with all that I can. Pronounce to you, I'm not sure.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. Over to others for any questions on this reflections about taking it forward, how we can be an instrument in bringing changes in the lives of reading the book and taking to the others, and also being a point of a catalytic agent to inspire others. So any suggestions from our friends? Karthi?
No, not.
You. Anybody else would like to ask any questions?
Just to answer what Sanjay ji brought up, it's a very interesting point. All our tablets, ointments, medicines, injections, nothing works in a dead man, right? So the ultimate common pathway through which healing happens is the Atma. There's no doubt about that. Now, if we talk about subsets, we would say the physical body is a subset of the energy body. Energy body and the physical body are subsets of the mental body. The mental body, energy body, and the physical body are subsets of the intelligence body. And all these are subsets of the bliss body, which we can feel instinctively in our heart. Because there is no memory, no conditioning. There is only the pure Atma which believes in oneness. Oneness, it means that there is only one, there's no other. And all of us are racing towards that. That is this expression of love. We're all searching for that oneness. That is what is love. And that love is omnipotent. So, according to our Guru, this is I'm just sharing with you all, omniscience and omnipresence qualities are pointers towards the Atma, because we cannot describe the Atma. But omnipotence is a function of love. And love is, we all want that oneness with God, which we experience as oneness towards each other, to husband, to children, to siblings, to parents. It's all expression of that wanting to be one with God. And that love is omnipotent. It can do anything. So if you're moved by anything, at point of wanting to be one with that, that devotion that can also heal you. So it's so very open-ended. We should never limit ourselves to just the physical body. It's a subset of so many others. So our future generation of doctors, paramedics, traditional physicians all need to think with this open mind. I feel sad because we are reducing traditional Indian medicine courses to become poor relations of the MBBS course. The present Siddha training course, they've taken out meditation, yoga. Ayurveda is also becoming like a poor relation of MBBS course because it's just, this pattern is trying to be forced onto the Ayurveda curriculum. It is so sad. In Kerala, which is a home of Ayurveda, I found the prescription for a kashayam, lehyam, all that was written in English by the Malayalam speaking doctor to the Malayalam speaking patient. So it's time that we rediscovered our roots and revamped and made all our medical systems modern, ancient, traditional, all in tune with our Bharatiya culture. This is just a suggestion, open for debate.
Thank you, ma'am. Actually, as we see you from listening to you, we see that you have been a doctor and you also have a perspective of spirituality and you also manage institutions and you've been also affiliated with many other institutions of this cause. This being there, your way of life itself would have been very unique in terms of following certain principles in your life, carrying out multiple activities. So can you share about your own way of life in terms of pursuing this endeavor, ma'am?
Small correction, I was never in charge of any institution. I was always only a cog in a wheel. Okay?
Yeah.
Never in charge of any big institution or department. But I was free. I was a free bird. That I can say. And from Bhagwan Baba, I learnt a lot. He came into my life actually when I was 2 years old because I'm told he came home. But of course, I don't remember any of that. But maybe some Purva Janma Punya. I came into his fold when I was a medical student. I was very lonely in CMC Vellore, the hostel. And I made my trip to Puttaparthi with some villagers from Vellore. I went to Whitefield, and at that time the general hospital was just being built. And I remember thinking, maybe I should work here when I finish studying. And then I forgot about it entirely. But it did happen, 16 years later. And I had a chance to, my parents were great readers. So we had a library at home. So I read Howard Murfitt book on Baba. And I wanted to know, I had some experiences also, but I wanted to know whether he was really God. So I went to Whitefield, sat in the darshan line, and when Swami came near me and said, Swami, I was 18 years old. He looked at me and I said, Swami, are you really God? And twice I asked him because I wanted to make sure that he heard me right, you see. And he spoke to me for 3 long minutes, but it was all in Telugu and I didn't understand one word. Anyway, later on, through the years, I came to understand, yes, when you're one with the Supreme, you are that, you are God. I directly experienced that he was indeed God. So I have been very, very fortunate to be touched and to have had that inward connection with Bhagwan. Because I was in Chennai, Baba is in Puttaparthi, but the longing was so much that I used to sit up at night. I didn't know anything about meditation, but I would imagine, I've reached Puttaparthi, I'm going in through the Ganesh gate, I'm going around the hall, and then somewhere I would lose my control, and then Baba would take over, and he would take me to some places. Once he took me, it was the middle of the night, and he took me to a seashore and said, ice cream. I said, Swami, isn't it night? He said, no, this part of the world, it's day. Another time we were going on and on and on. And I asked, where are you going? Where are we going, Swami? And he said, this is called Brahmanda Sanchar. Now, all this, I didn't know whether I was imagining or whether I was going nuts. But next morning, I would, at breakfast table, share with my children and husband, Baba took me here, Baba did this, Baba did that. And they would look at me saying, maybe something is wrong. But my point was, I'm not doing any harm to anyone and I'm feeling happy. So why not? So I continued. But then what happened was, there was this person, now he's no more. He was a professor emeritus of surgery, Dr. Nanjunda Rao in Chennai. His grandfather was the Nanjunda Rao who supported Swami Vivekananda's trip to Chicago. Okay, such a great man he was. And he's a great Sai devotee. One day I got a call from him saying, Dr. Hiramalini, I understand you have written a book. You never told me. I said, sir, I mean, it just happened. That is the first book Baba made me write, called God in Our Midst. He said, well, I have been told to purchase a copy and read it. I said, oh. I said, sir, who told you? He said, well, the old man. I said, old man? Then he said, every morning I get up and first I go to Puttaparthi, pay my obeisances to Bhagwan Baba. Then I go to Shirdi. Then I fall at Shirdi Baba's feet and then we have a long chat. And in that he told me, Hiramalini has written a book, purchase a copy and read it. So you can imagine, you know. So that was like a message for me saying this, you know, this nightly, whatever was happening to me, it was in some plane of reality. Okay. But then again, Baba didn't stop at that. When I went to Puttaparthi for Seva, one man insisted on talking to me. And he told me the story of one Sharma. Now the Sharma had a Vigraha of Tirupati, Balaji. And if Sharma asked the Vigraha any question, Balaji would reply. So word went around and so people started coming to ask Sharma, when will my daughter get married? Will this happen? Etc. etc. And he would answer and it would happen like that. One day, one man asked Sharma, you asked Balaji, will Sharma get moksha? He was taken aback, but he asked Balaji, Swami, will I get moksha? And Balaji said, no. Then later on, Sharma asked, why did you say that? I won't get moksha. Then Balaji said, it seems, what do? You just parrot like repeat whatever I tell you, whatever I say, you tell them. That doesn't deserve moksha. Only selfless seva, selfless love will get you moksha. And then I realized that was a message for me. What was I doing? I was sitting up all night or part of the night and, you know, going on all these yatras with Bhagwan. And in the morning I was telling my husband and children. That was not going to get me any moksha. Only selfless seva, selfless love, that is the only way forward. And moreover, you know, if you don't sleep at night, you can't function well in the day. So then I stopped that nocturnal practice of meditation. But I still wanted to be with Bhagwan. So what did I do? Every waking moment, I kept on talking to him. You know, if I got up in the morning, Baba, okay, now we have to go to the hospital to do this, do that. So he was like a constant companion in my mind space, in my heart space. And then I realized that, yes, I was getting, you know, the guidance as well. From the smallest things like how to get a parking spot, from that to, you know, decisions like daughter's wedding, everything, there was guidance. So if there's a yearning, God will be there for you. So that's all I have to say, you know. And things happened. Books happened, music happened. I mean, I learned singing a little bit as a child, but in 16 I went off to medical college. But then by His grace, from about 1991, when I lost my mother, and that was a very big shock, music has been just flowing in, and it's all raga perfect, talam perfect, and I'm blissfully, you know, I don't have any such jnanam or knowledge. So it's coming from some other source, from some Nada Brahman. See? So in other words, God is available. Him is available for all ordinary people. It's your yearning, how much you want to. It's all that's all that matters. Yeah. So I
Thank you, ma'am.
any other, you know, no great practice or anything that I have done, and I've only been a cog in everything, all through.
Yeah.
But free.
Everybody is an instrument in the hands of Almighty, man. Nice. In fact, Dr. Nanjunda was in Service Brigade, who had a movement over there at that point of time.
Yes.
And I was an instrument in his hands to go and serve Andhra Mahila Sabha for the
Yes.
autistic children over there. And we
Yes.
had been, and his son also has been in Ramakrishna Mutt as of now doing the service
Yes.
as well.
Yeah. A
It was
great
nice
family.
listening to him. It
Great
was he
family.
who wrote a letter of reference to me to Vivekananda Kendra to join as such when I was 19 years old at that point of time. It's nice listening to you. Sanjay ji, please.
Sorry, I wanted to ask Dr. Hiramaniji one, personal sort of a question. Did you happen to meet Dr. Chibbar, Evan Chibbar in Sai Baba's ashram?
I've heard of him. He's a great devotee, and he's written a book about
Yes.
management. About management.
Yes, yes.
I did not have the blessing to meet him, but I've heard of him. A very great devotee of Bhagwan,
Yeah.
General Chiba.
Yeah, because I was with him at Management Development Institute, Gurgaon, and then he retired and went to Satsang Ashram, and he was teaching leadership in the
Yes, leadership.
business school there. Pranam.
Madam, you made a lot of mention about the Siddha system of medicine. You will be happy to know that Vivekananda Kendra Nardep also is promoting Siddha system of medicine for the last 3 decades.
Wonderful.
And from your talk, I understood that our own students, we are having a 3-year course, certificate course for Siddha Vaidyas and students. And many of them, they may not be aware of what you talk today. So what I will do, I will get your book, and at least the Siddha portion, at least we'll try to make it as a part of the syllabus for all our students.
Yes, you can make use of it any which way you want.
Yeah.
And Dr. C.P. Matthew,
Yeah.
he's no more now. Sir he was a professor of oncology, cancer, in Trivandrum Medical College, Calicut Medical College, and Kottayam Medical College. But he became, an expert in Siddha Vaidyam as well as Ayurveda, because he found that one of his patients whom he had sent home to die, 4 months down the lane, he was walking on the road in Kottayam. But Dr. C.P. Matthew, he didn't leave it at that. He went to that patient's house, and then he found that some Siddha Vaidyan had given him something, and that had cured him. Then Dr. C.P. Matthew tracked down this Siddha Vaidya. He was just an ordinary mendicant, wandering mendicant. And Dr. C.P. Matthew followed him like a chela. He took leave, went with this mendicant, and then he learned a lot about the Siddha Aushadas. And then he himself studied Siddha Vaidyam and Ayurveda and integrated medicine in the treatment of cancer patients. And apparently he's kept diaries of all of all the patients, of what he treated, and they did extremely well. But the modern medicine fraternity were not ready to even look at it. And finally, when he passed on, he was considered a Brahmarshi himself, because he was so learned, such a wise person. But that happened to him. But he should actually be called the father of integrated medicine in India. So to your Siddha students, Dr. C.P. Matthew, that is a name they should never forget.
Thank you. Actually, we have a network of about 500 Siddha Vaidyas, and so at least we'll try to translate it in Tamil and circulate it to all our fraternity. Thank you, madam.
Please, Saira.
If there are no questions from the other people, I would wish that were taken by Vasudevji to have a final concluding note.
I think we should not lose the flavor of madam's talk, so we'll conclude with a prayer, and we'll have, as usual, our other minutes, etc. we'll take afterwards in the next meeting. Over to our Sanjay ji for Shanti Mantra. Prakash ji has joined. Whether you would like to have anything before you conclude, Prakash Chandra ji?
Pranam was why maybe I will listen it again, but great to listen this. Pranam, thank you.
Sanjay ji have a Shanti Mantra.
लोकाः समस्ताः भवन्तु लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम.
Thanks a lot. Thanks to Sinaji for joining today. All the best.
Thanks.
Madam, you should come to Kanyakumari whenever time permits.
Sure. We would love to come, all as the divine will.